You're listening to the Word Slinger Podcast, episode 22, User Experience Design with Martin Ridgway.
This episode of the Word Slinger Podcast is brought to you by Happy Pants Books. Are you a coach, consultant, or keynote speaker who needs to publish or perish? Get your ideas out of your head and onto the page. Visit happypantsbooks.com.
It's the Word Slinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented Pants Optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger.
Word Slinger.
Hey everybody, it is Kevin Tomlinson, and I am the Word Slinger, and this week I am going to talk to you about a good friend of mine. His name is Martin Ridgway, and he is the practice lead innovation and implementation at Proficient XD. Now, that took me a couple of tries to get that right. This isn't the first time I've recorded this intro, but first, let me say thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. This is another week of me getting to just hang out with people that I enjoy talking to and, passing along their stories to you. And I aim to educate as part of this show. Like I want to inform, and I want to educate, and I want to, inspire. And a big part of what I do and what I've always done is all about reaching an audience, and it's all about interacting with that audience in a way that gets my message across and makes a change in them and thus in the world. So the whole idea here behind that podcast, behind my books, behind everything I do is to craft an experience that allows me to get my ideas across, but also has an impact further on in society. So that's what Martin talks about today. We're actually going to chat a little about user experience design, which is you may have heard also described as UX design. And whenever you see that online now, you'll know what that means if you didn't already. But it's he gets into a little more detail about it and about what it means. But my take on user experience design and user experience in general is what I described before. It's about crafting your message so that you reach the audience that you intend to reach, but also make yourself more discoverable. So, as an author, my the user experience that I'm designing, it's all about leading my reader through the journey of the books, the stories themselves, but it's also about leading the reader to discover the books in the first place. I am a brand, okay? I mean, Kevin Tomlinson, Word Slinger, that's a whole brand, and I want to make sure that brand signifies what I really intend for it to be and is effective. So in order for that to happen, I got to pay a little bit of attention to just the sort of thing that Martin and I are going to talk about. Now, we're primarily web-focused on this episode. So, if you've got a website and you're looking to improve it, there's an opportunity there, but and you can learn quite a bit. There's some thought that you may not have put into this before. So anyway, that's how the show is going to go today. Before I get into it, I just wanted to mention real quick that I am still promoting the Patreon campaign. Thank you to the people who have looked into that. I'm so very grateful. You can support this show if you like the content, if you like what you're learning, if you like getting inspired by the stories of these really, really awesome people, then you can help out. Just contribute $1 a month. That would get you, 4 episodes of the Word Slinger, and you can listen anytime you want. Actually, the content is always going to be free. It's free now. It will always be free. This campaign is really just about giving a little nudge to help support me in the effort of building the show, because it takes a few hours a week to do. So I really appreciate it. If you enjoy what you're hearing and you want to hear more of it, as little as $1 a month, you can go up as high as you want. I will take any dollar amount. So go check that out. You can find that at patreon.com/Kevin Tumlinson, or you can also go on to, I need to change that. I need to change that to /wordslinger at some point. Maybe I'll do that. But in the meantime, just to keep things uniform, you can go to kevintumlinson.com and click on the Fund Me link in the navigation up top, and that'll take you straight there. And if you're on the Wordslinger podcast page, there's actually a Patreon button. So if you're on kevintumlinson.com/podcast, you'll see the Patreon button right there. You can make a contribution. There's no long-term obligation there. You can cancel it anytime you want. It is like a monthly commitment kind of thing, but there's no contract or anything. So if you pay $1 and you decide, this Wordslinger stuff's not working out, then go ahead and pull it. I don't mind. I'd rather you put that money on something you feel is important. So anyway, that little public service announcement is out of the way. And now let's get to what the show is really about, which is the story. So here we are with my good friend, longtime buddy, Martin Ridgway, talking about user experience design. Hey everybody, today I'm actually chatting with a very good friend of mine, somebody I've known for a few years now. Kind of my you're like a hetero life mate, man.
I'm the yin to your yang.
That's what it is. I spend way too much time thinking about you longingly. So this is my good friend Martin Ridgway, and he is right now. He's the lead. He's the practice lead. Innovation and implementation for Proficient XD, and all that is going to come into sharp focus soon. But what we're going to talk about today is the idea of storytelling through user experience. And Martin is an expert on user experience as far as system optimization. Am I getting this right? Am I blowing it, or am I?
No, you're good. So
all right.
Yeah.
So why don't you? Let's just start with give us a little background. Like, what is it you do exactly?
Sure. So my role consists of if you imagine user experience as a big kind of envelope, and within that envelope there's a whole bunch of different leaflets, and those leaflets contain words like usability and human factors and ergonomics and accessibility and system performance and things like that. And I am responsible for a few of those pieces of paper. So user experience is this big whole, and there's a whole bunch of different people. Essentially, if you think of user experience, it's a fancy way of saying design, honestly. Yeah. So that's really what we do. We're all designers with the work that we do. We design digital experiences. So that's websites, web applications, intranets, that kind of thing, all of which are hugely important from a brand and content perspective. Essentially, if you don't have content, you don't have a story, then you don't have anything with which to hook somebody. So user experience is hugely important from that perspective.
Okay, so you are, and that's brand story is one of these things. It's kind of amorphous. Like, people talk about it all the time, but nobody really nails down what it is. But what you do is very sort of direct, right? I mean, you're creating an experience. So, for example, if you build a website for a client, you're crafting the experience the user has from the second they land on that site, right?
Exactly right. And we often say that we try and treat design almost like it used to be treated like it was kind of icing on a cake. And I think a lot of what we're trying to do with the user experience movement is to stop treating design like it's the icing on the cake and start treating it like it's the actual cake itself, the whole thing. So it's not just the tasty icing and how beautiful it's put together and how wonderfully it's been crafted, that the design process that goes on to the icing. It's about the actual the baking of the cake and the ingredients that go into that cake, whether whether you have made adjustments for the altitude at which you are baking that cake, for example. If you want to get into like the real nitty gritty, then that's really where true design lives. It's in those real like small details. So that's what we try and do. It's a kind of a broken analogy, if you like, but ultimately,
now I
you see
want cake.
I'll be round later.
So, what kind of impact does good design have then? I mean, I'm all right. I'm going to play ignorant here. Okay, we're going to pretend like I don't know anything about user experience design, and I'm going to say, isn't it enough to have just a really pretty website that people can come and read about you and click on a box and sign up for your mailing list? Isn't that enough?
Really are playing them today. Okay. Well, the obvious answer is no. But because the user experience of a site goes much deeper than that. What you're really talking about though is saying that if you have a simple website with a simple call to action, i.e., you want to get somebody to sign up for something, then as long as you have a pretty design, that's fine. Well, you have to have a hook. You have to have something that draws people in. You have to design the experience around that hook and a way to get people to actually do what you want, which is that call to action. And without designing everything around that, not just the face, not just putting the icing on the cake, without having the story behind it, the content behind it, making that content as engaging as it possibly can be, then ultimately you're going to fail. And nobody is going to come. And it extends further than that. It extends into how are you going to market that? How are you going to get the word out? Because this isn't the 90s anymore. It's not if you build it, they will come.
Right.
There isn't 100,000 websites out there. There's billions upon billions of them, and ultimately, you need to make sure that you have all of that strategy in place before you can even, start to think that you're going to be successful, and thinking about designing an input box and a button on a page and expecting people to come along.
So how does this fit with a good marketing strategy? Like, where does it fall in?
It is it forms the core of a digital marketing strategy. If you don't have a good user experience in mind, then you might as well pack up and go home or find a different job. A good marketing team, a good strategic team who are in that side, whether they're called marketing or not, understands that without a significant investment into digital strategy and digital user experience, that they might as well just go and do something else for a living.
Yeah. Most probably should go do something else for a living. So, what you mentioned a hook? Like, what makes for a good hook on when you're designing a website, for example? I know we're focused on that, but you guys also do like app development and software, sort of software front end, right?
Yeah. Less on the software front end, but we do things like mobile app development. A lot of web apps, but software is kind of traditional desktop applications. That's really not where we tend to focus, although we've done a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, what makes a good hook? And the answer, just like pretty much everything else in the realm of user experience, is it depends. Who is your audience? What do they need? What are their requirements? How have you anticipated? What research have you done in order to kind of determine that from what is your expected outcome from this? And all of that information that you may have gathered, we can gather for you as user experience professionals. Part of the user experience envelope is research. So That's something that we have specialists who focus on in this industry. And they can help you determine that and that path and where you need to go. Because a lot of times you think you know the question that you need to be answered.
Yeah.
And in actuality, you don't actually know the question.
Yeah, I hardly ever know the question. But I do know this question. What are some best practices for user experience design?
I will obviously take this from the
Yeah.
perspective, because I'm not Apple and I don't do
What?
hardware design.
What is Johnny Ives like?
Oh, Johnny, yeah, because we're both English, we know each other.
Wait a minute, you're English?
No, I'm from Arkansas. What are some best practices from a user experience? Okay, so let me come at this from my personal soapbox, which is I'm responsible for a bunch of very technical people. My team consists of about 20 front-end developers, we're called in the industry, which essentially means we are the ones that build the HTML and the CSS and the JavaScript that you interact with. So we get the designs and we put that all together. Now, from my perspective, and this is very personal and not necessarily the same perspective as somebody else in the same industry as me, my perspective is this: if it's not fast, you might as well go home. Because the most important thing to a user, and especially in this era of multi-device capabilities and having what we call the heterogeneous environment that is the web, i.e., you can access it from your phone, your iPad, your tablet, your laptop, your 27-inch iMac, whatever it might be. What we have to do is make sure that experience is as fast as possible in as many different ways as possible. So it has to be as fast on your Wi-Fi connection at home when you're connected up to your big fat Comcast or Time Warner pipe or whatever it might be, as it is on your 3G network on your phone, where there's a lot more problems going on from a connectivity perspective to make sure that your experience is as fast as it can be. So that to me is the most important thing. But like I said, that's very personal, and you're going to get a different answer from somebody else who may not be coming at it from my point of view. But performance, that to me is the most important thing. Without performance, without a user being able to get to the experience in the shortest amount of time possible, then you fail. Doesn't matter how good the research is, doesn't matter how beautiful the design is. If a user can't interact with it in under 3 seconds, and if they're not getting something on their phone or their laptop or whatever that shows that something is loading within a second, then forget it.
Yeah.
You've failed.
Yeah. I'm pretty impatient myself, so if Facebook isn't updating fast enough, I'm out. So
yeah, exactly, and that's the nature of us as consumers. As we, as technology marches forward, we have higher and higher expectations of what that technology can do for us, and and we don't care about things like network conditions and that kind of thing. It has to work, and it has to work consistently and reliably. And if it doesn't, then we as designers have failed.
So what are some of the challenges in designing for all these different platforms and making sure that it's fast and easily accessible?
A myriad of challenges. So to take a couple of examples, we have like I said, the challenge of unreliable 3G and 4G networks. So how do you make sure that you're sending only the required information down a pipe to a device that is probably accessing through a mobile network? Well, responsive design, which is the idea of the same website being sent to multiple devices and adjusting and adapting based upon the screen size that you are looking at it on, would say that the idea is that you only send the information that's necessary for that particular device, which is called mobile first. Mm-hmm. So you're sending less information to a mobile device than you would be sending to a device with a large screen. So it means that you're sending only the information that's required for a slower connection.
Yeah. So
That's a huge deal.
what? So why not just design for mobile only?
Mobile is a growing and a very important sector, but it's not the only sector.
Yeah.
And we still have a huge number of people who access the web on desktop devices, and the work that we do as well is a lot of corporate work. So we can't. There's no way of focusing simply on mobile and ignoring all of these other devices out there. Plus, you have the other aspect of it, which is this: exactly what is a mobile device? Because right now that runs the gamut from kind of not particularly updated or modern, and certainly Android devices would fall into this category, the lower end Android devices, through higher capacity, larger screen resolution iPhones and the bigger Android devices, up to what I know as phablets. Phones that fall in the midst of the traditional phone screen and a tablet screen. And then you've also got tablets, which have, a lot of them have 3 and 4G capability built into them. Connect them up to a 3G and 4G network. So the definition of what is mobile is changing on a frighteningly fast basis. I mean, it's almost daily there's a new device out on the market. So what we do is we try and take this idea of universality. So everybody should be able to access the information and on whatever device that they happen to be using at the time, and that means taking the principles of mobile first and applying them to this. So we're not excluding anybody, but we're only sending the information that a smaller device needs.
Okay, so there's no real median you can design to. It's all, you have to design for all the various options.
Yeah, and of course when projects are scoped, there is a realization and a recognition that you have to place caps on this, because ultimately we could be designing something for 10 years.
Right. Yeah.
But if you take the principles of universality, then what you are designing, if it's flexible enough, should work really across just about anything.
Yeah. So does responsive design more or less quadruple your work then?
Well, no, because think of it this way. If we were in a position where we were designing a site, and let's assume that basically in this fictional world that I'm creating, the world is more or less exactly as it is right now, except for the fact that responsive design doesn't exist. So we have all of these individual devices, and we have laptops, and we have desktop computers. If we didn't have responsive design, then we would have to create a website for basically every single device, right, every single screen size that would be accessing the content. I don't want to live in that world. I would imagine that the people who are responsible for maintaining those websites after we have finished the design process wouldn't want to live in that world.
I think that world was called the early millennium.
Yeah. Now, and then responsive design came along in about 2010. The term was coined by a designer out of Boston named Ethan Market, who basically came along and said there are these principles, and this is really what we should be doing and using, and it took off, and here we are. So I definitely don't want to go back to that idea of individual sites for individual devices, especially not considering how many, like I said a few minutes ago, how many devices currently exist in the world, and that number is only going up and up.
Yeah, and I imagine that it's not going to stop anytime soon, and new platforms will emerge that will just change the game altogether. So, how do you prepare? I mean, there's no real way to prepare for something you don't know is coming, but how do you sort of hedge your bets when it comes to emerging technologies?
You design for the future. You don't design for the past. I mean, that's the glib answer.
Yeah, very
But
glib. Thanks for that.
you're welcome. The principles that we use, the ideas of responsive design and mobile first are there to future proof, so that when a new screen size comes along that is slightly different, like for example when the iPhone 6 came out, it had a different screen size, width and height than its predecessor, the 5. If we were designing for specific devices, then there would be a scramble, and oh my gosh, we have to introduce another breakpoint, as they're called, for this particular new device. If you're doing it in a future-proof manner, you've already kind of thought about this and started to do things like break the content, break the design rather, add a breakpoint to the design where it makes sense for the content of that design rather than the screen size upon which it's going to be displayed. Getting into the real technical nitty-gritty of how a responsive site gets put together now. Sorry.
No, that's cool. I mean, in light of all that, though, how do you keep users from being left behind, or do you?
Well, designing for the future doesn't mean we ignore the past. The idea of universality and really it boils down to accessibility is that everybody should be able to access the web. Everybody should be able to use whatever device they want to access the content on. What that doesn't mean is the experience will be exactly the same on an older device as it is on a newer device.
Yeah.
So we have a technique which goes hand in hand with the ones that I've been talking about, called progressive enhancement. And what that means is we design for a baseline, and that baseline is a device that is capable of accessing the web. And then we add features as using various technologies. We add features to the design that can only be used by more capable devices, and you just build up on that until you have something that is, essentially an A grade experience. You didn't see the air quotes that I did around A grade.
I heard. I felt them.
Okay. So you have that A grade experience, but the devices that can't access, that can't experience that, don't even know about those things that are built onto it because they don't understand them. They're older, and so they get the information that they need, and it's as fast as it possibly can be because we're designing this, as I said, from the perspective of mobile first and using progressive enhancement. So they don't care about all of this new stuff. They don't understand it. They just get the information that they need, and so they have an experience that works for them. It may not look exactly the same as the newer devices, but that doesn't matter. What matters is the experience and the content and the story and the brand are there for everybody.
Yeah. So is it no user left behind?
Nice education reference. Yes, in a way it is. I mean, inevitably you're going to get outliers. So you're always going to have the person who, for whatever reason, went out 20 years ago, bought a brand new computer, put Windows 95 on it with Windows 95 Plus, installed Internet Explorer 1, and never upgraded. Those are, few and far between, but inevitably you're going to get people who are in that position.
Yeah, my mom. So, okay, so this is great when you're talking about the scale of like a corporation or a large business, but how does this scale down for the small business or the individual? Like, where would they start if they wanted to improve UX or user experience on their website?
Well, that's a good question, but let's be very clear. User experience applies to everybody, whether
Yeah.
that's large or small, individuals or corporations. My job is, I've always seen this. It doesn't matter where I've been employed, where I've done work, whether I've been freelance or whether I've been working for an organization like the one I work for right now. My attitude to this has always been, let's make the web better.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I'm here to do. I'm ultimately, even though I can't draw pretty pictures, I'm still a designer, and that design comes from the idea of improving the experience for users. So whether that is, you can take this at a large corporation level where you go in and you decide that you're going to upend everything and do a complete overhaul of just about everything, all the way down to looking at a small business website or an independence website and focusing in on just something on the site. Take something and go, is this the very best that it can be to reach as many people as possible? So let's take, for example, let's assume a sole proprietor who has a website, and they are taking I don't know, the navigation.
Perhaps an author.
Perhaps. I don't know that I know an author. Oh wait. So let's use this fictional author, if you like, to illustrate our example. Now, if this fictional author, let's call him Calvin,
All right.
was
plausible.
was to take a look at his website, could he focus in on specific areas of that site and once a week take a look at something different? So week one, is the main navigation the very best that it can be? Does it convey the information needed to get people where they need to go as quickly and as efficiently as possible?
Yeah.
Let's just focus in on that. Take an hour and look at it. And if not, then let's think about not changing necessarily the overall structure of the site, but more looking at the words in the navigation themselves. Do they accurately describe what it is I'm trying to get across?
Right.
Once you've done that, okay, great. Then let's leave it alone for a week, see how it performs. I'm assuming, of course, that this person is taking a look at their analytics and seeing how the changes that they're making are affecting the site. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that you could do in with regard to that as well, including things like A/B testing, but we won't get into that. But once you've done that, then focus in on something else. Is the experience on a mobile device as good as it can be? Is it as fast as it can be? Am I making my users wait because I want to load a pretty image?
Yeah.
The very small changes on a gradual basis are a really good way of going through a design process. Evolution, not revolution, right?
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned analytics, by the way, and so that is going to open a can of worms. But so what's the best system for monitoring analytics? And explain what analytics are, just in case people don't know.
Well, I was just about to say, yeah. So essentially, what we try and do is on the web, we try and measure things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially what analytics does, what analytics are. I can illustrate this better once I give you the package. It's a free package. It's Google Analytics. Pretty much, it's pretty much universal that if you're using an analytics package on the web, then you're probably using Google.
Yeah.
Unless you're prepared to pay tens of thousands of dollars for other enterprise level packages. But for the vast majority of people, Google Analytics is where it's at.
Yeah.
So what is that? Well, essentially, you add a little piece of code to your website, and that is enough for Google to start being able to monitor who is accessing the site, as in, how many people are accessing, what devices they're accessing the site on, what the screen sizes of those devices are, what their other capabilities are, where they're going, how long they stayed on a particular page, when they dropped off the site, what was the last page that they were on when they dropped off. If you have a sales funnel, you can add analytics to that sales funnel to say, okay, let's make sure that as many people as possible are getting through this funnel. And you can say, okay, I want to know, say I have a 4-stage sales funnel. First thing I would do is say, why is that funnel not 3 phases? But anyway, optimize, right? Yeah. But at every stage in that funnel, let's add a piece of analytics to monitor who is dropping off and why. And so that's really, in a nutshell, what analytics is, what it does, and how it can help.
Okay. And Google is, of course, that's the go-to. Everyone I've ever known has always used it, except me. Apparently, I still need to set up Google Analytics on my site for some reason. So, because I'm a fool and I rely on the built-in analytics.
I can help you with that.
Yeah, I may have to turn to you for that because I don't know why. My brain fogs over the instant I start messing with Google Analytics. So, what's a why don't you walk us through a typical good user experience? Or can you even do that?
Well, yes, I can, because there is it's a trite example in our industry, but it is it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, because cliches only become cliches when they work.
Yeah.
It's Apple,
okay.
Apple.com. It is the distillation of everything that is absolutely right with a good user experience. You get on their website and you know exactly where you need to go. You get some beautiful product imagery, hero imagery, which instantly draws you in to the experience. It makes you feel like you want to be a part of this community, whether you're an Apple person or an Android person or whatever. I know there's hate on both sides of the equation. I don't really get involved in that. I'm speaking purely from a design perspective. Yeah. It is a truly one of the most unique experiences on the web. I mean, if I was to open up the Apple site and go to the Mac page, which currently is, as of today, is highlighting the iMac with the Retina display.
Right.
I look at that page and I want a new iMac. I have an iMac. I have a perfectly functional iMac. It's a wonderful machine. Doesn't matter. I still want a new one.
Yeah.
Because of that page. It's a beautifully designed experience. And it's not full of words. It's not full of it's not overwhelming the user. It's a well thought out, well balanced page that uses content and imagery. I mean, imagery is content, right? But it uses it in a way that just makes you feel like you want to belong.
Yeah,
that's user experience.
Yeah.
Done well.
Now I want cake and an iMac. So, okay, now you've brought up Mac, so I'm going to bring this up. What sort of equipment, hardware-wise, what are some things people might want to consider in developing this sort of thing? I mean, largely everything you do is sort of hardware independent, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no barrier to entry other than, do you have a computer? Yes? Okay, go.
Yeah. So what's software then?
Well, I mean, that entire... So again, it is entirely dependent on what area of user experience you want to focus in. If you are focused on things like research and usability, things like that, then what you need is a word processor and probably some form of software to actually enable you to do user testing, i.e., have somebody remote who can walk through a set of scenarios that you have set up. Yeah. So there's specialist software out there. It's not actually that expensive, but that would be at one end of the scale. If you want to be involved in things like wireframing, which is an aspect of user experience where essentially you strip down. It's this one of the starts of the design process, where you essentially come up with the structure of the page, and it's like a black and white representation of what you are going to be eventually designing and building and putting out there. It's a way of getting information across quickly. What I would suggest for the vast majority of people, if they want to get involved in this, is you're going to need two things. You're going to need a pencil and a piece of paper.
All right.
Sketch. Do as many of those sketches as you can. Sketching is quick. It's easy. Everyone can do it. You may not be may not think of yourself as the greatest artist in the world, but I guarantee you can draw a box.
Yeah.
So
I've known people who can't draw boxes. So
even if it's not a square box, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can draw a box, and you can label that box with what you mean for that thing to be. So right. Draw a box, write the word logo in there. Okay. There you go. You now got the idea that this is a logo. Draw another box, type in there search, and now you have a search bar. It's a way of getting information across as quickly as you possibly can. Once you've got that, then there's specialist wireframing software. But again, you don't really need it. You can do it in even like a simple graphics package, one of the less expensive graphics packages. But speaking of which, if you want to get into the design process, Photoshop is the industry standard.
Yeah.
Once you've got to my realm, the technical realm, really what you need is a text editor. So something that can just do straightforward texting, not as in hey, you want to go out and have a drink, not that sort of texting, but
that's a whole different user experience.
It really is.
Yeah.
But this a simple text editor, not a word processor, because this is raw text. It's going to form the basis of the website. But on Windows, the example would be Notepad, right?
Yeah.
We like to use something that has a little bit more in the way of capabilities attached to it. Notepad is very simple, but ultimately you could use something as simple as that. That's how I got started. I started using Notepad when I was first building websites many years ago. So there's that, and then as long as you have a web browser and an internet connection, you're good to go.
Very cool. I mean, I love the idea of that it can start so simple.
Oh yeah, it's not only are we designing user experiences that are as universal as they can be. It really is universal in order to get involved in this industry. There is no real barrier to entry. The best way of learning this stuff is by doing it. There's very few formal education paths for a lot of user experience. Right. Yes, there's human factors, which is a discipline which has been going on for a lot longer than user experience has been going on. But human factors, again, just forms a part of user experience. For for somebody who is formally into design, the idea of creative design, putting the beautiful design on top of a user experience, then yeah, you can go to school for that.
Yeah.
But there's huge, great areas where the best way of learning this stuff is just by doing it, by getting involved in it. So.
Yeah. So where's a good place for people to start if they want to get involved in it? Other than sketching and opening their text editor.
Yeah, yes. So, I mean, good resources. One of my favorites is actually a web publication called Smashing Magazine, which is smashingmagazine.com. and the reason for that is they cover a whole bunch of different technologies and different skill levels, and everything from coding, the side that I am responsible for, through UX design, as in take wireframing and usability and that kind of thing, through mobile and the creative design process. It's a very good resource, very good articles, high quality, and it's an incredibly useful place to start learning. There's a million places really, but if you want to start reading, that's a good place.
Okay. Okay. Well, so, and I know there are places online also for. Do you do a lot of coding? I mean, is that a big chunk of what you do?
Not anymore. I used to. That's how I got started. Now I joke to my colleagues that I have become very good at resourcing and an Outlook calendar. But that's where my background lies. I started in this industry building sites. So the HTML and CSS and the JavaScript that builds up a website. That's my background.
But if somebody wanted to get into this as a field, that might be something they should focus on learning and becoming proficient at that.
I would argue that if you want to be involved in the web in anything other than a sort of end user perspective, i.e., somebody who is just there to consume information, then you should have at least an understanding of how this magical thing is put together.
Yeah.
That means understanding the structure of it, the HTML, the CSS, what the difference is between HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and how those things come together and interact with one another. It will make you a better designer and a better user experience professional if you understand that stuff. You don't have to do it on a daily basis. You don't have to become a coder. But if you have an understanding of how the web gets put together, you can understand its limitations. And that's a huge deal.
So someone wants to get into this, they, you've talked about, you've kind of hit on this a little, I guess, but, how do they learn the best practices of user experience design? Like, they can do a lot of reading, and they can go online and learn more about it. And there's always testing to see what's working, but the rudiments of it, where does it start?
That's a good question. I can only come at this from how I learned, and that was really by doing. Mm-hmm. So doing and reading. I mean, those are the two things. I would figure stuff out on various sites that I've had over the years for various things, personal and professional, and figure out what has worked, what hasn't worked, and kind of learn from that. And on whilst doing that, reading about what I learned to understand were best practices. Now, from a sort of more formal way of going about that, honestly, I don't really know, because I haven't done it that way. I came along and I did this stuff in the very early days of the web, when there wasn't really that much out there that could help you. And the way that my career has gone is into the very technical stuff, which I could direct you to a million of those resources. But ultimately, if you want to come at it from the larger UX perspective, there are probably sites out there that could help you. So I'm trying to think of exactly where somebody who is new to the industry could kind of go to take a look, and I'm having difficulty thinking of an example. Probably because there's about 40 billion of them out.
Yeah, you've got a wealth of choices.
Right.
So, all it really takes. They can Google for themselves, learn user experience or whatever, and there'll be a million hits come up. So I'll leave them to that. Google's good at that. So if people want to find out more about you guys, and Proficient, And that's proficient, not proficient.
Correct.
Which I know is going to jack with some folks. But I'm going to put links in the show notes. But where are some places where they can find you guys online, learn a little more?
Sure. So I work for Proficient XD. Now, XD is one of the business units, if you like, within Proficient. Proficient being an IT consultancy company, we have clients all over the US and around the world, and all bunch of locations in various cities throughout the US. But I work for XD. XD standing for Experience Design. And we are the digital agency within this larger Proficient whole. If you want to take a look and learn a bit more, that's we're at proficientxd.com.
Okay. And you guys on Twitter or Facebook or any of the?
We are.
I'm sure
now,
you are.
yeah, I'm looking for our Facebook page. It's probably there we go. I'm pretty sure it's Proficient. Facebook.com/ProficientXD, but I am going to check because that would be embarrassing, wouldn't it? Yes, it is. It's Facebook.com/ProficientXD.
Okay, I'm going to write it down just in case. Okay, well, this has been pretty interesting, actually. I've learned a few things, and I'm going to be in touch to get you to help me with my Google Analytics now, so you gave yourself some work.
Hey, as long as there's beer in it for me, then I'm good.
Yeah, we'll take care of you. So if you're interested in learning more about user experience design, Google it, you lazy bum. But you can also go check out Proficient XD's website, proficientxd.com. That'll be in the show notes. You can also float questions my way if you go to kevintumlinson.com/podcast. That's the quick and easy way right now until the new site is up. But you can always leave a voicemail right from the little floaty boxy buttony thing that's right there on the right hand side of the screen, or call me if you'd like at 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673, and you can leave me a voicemail. And if you have a question for Martin, or as I'm calling him now, Marting, you can leave that as well, and I'll pass that along, and I'm sure he'll be happy to answer. I'm sure you'll be happy to answer, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely do that. I welcome that sort of stuff.
Great. So thanks a lot, man. This has been a tremendous user experience for this word slinger, and you've made it wonderful. And we'll circle up around with you again another time. So thanks for being on the show, man.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you next week. Well, that was my good friend Martin Ridgway, and he and I, we worked together at an ad agency a few years ago, and we just kind of clicked. It's really interesting because I don't know if you noticed, but he's British, and and I'm a born and raised Southern Baptist Texas guy who hasn't gotten far from his roots, I guess, in some respects. But we just clicked. We have a lot in common. We're both big fans of Doctor Who, for example. Had to throw that in there, and we have some similar sense of humor. So it's great having guys like that in your life. He's the work he does is fantastic, and I learn a lot from him every time we talk. And I hope you learned a lot. This was a great conversation, and the idea of user experience design is something that I think can be implemented not just in your website, but in every aspect of your life, every part of your career. Certainly, you can, how you craft your presentation, as it were, the experience that people have when they encounter you. There's another word for that. It's called branding. And this is something that I've worked with clients with in the past. Even author clients, whenever I talk to author clients, a lot of people don't realize that, when you're putting yourself out there as a creator of something, you're creating a brand. You've created a product, right? So products come with a brand. And, the best products have really easy to define brands. They're very simple and they're very recognizable. Look at Apple, as Martin mentioned. If you want to improve the response you get, then start looking at the user experience of dealing with you, of approaching you and getting to your work. So And you can do this in your personal life as well. If you have relationships that aren't as stellar as you'd like them to be, start looking at the user experience that you offer to your spouse, your boyfriend or girlfriend, or your buddies. I mean, it can go that deep. Everything we talked about in this episode was very technical, but if you want to talk about the more personal aspects of applying user experience design to your life, why not ping me? You can call me if you like at 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673. Leave me a voicemail. Ask me a question. I'm happy to help out with anything I can. I got lots of ideas about how to apply user experience design to every aspect of your life. So ask away. And if you got more technical questions or you want to talk about design as it applies to your website or app development or software development or something like that, I can pass that along to Martin and get you guys connected. So again, leave me a voicemail, 281-809-WORD, 281-809-9673. And if you are calling internationally, meaning outside the U.S., and don't want to pay the toll charges, you can actually go on the website at kevintumlinson.com/podcast, and the little donkey that's on the right-hand side there, that little floaty, clicky, orangey box, is all about leaving me a voicemail straight from your computer box. So from your face hole to your computer hole, you can you can get a message to me. You're welcome, everybody. Sign up for the mailing list while you're on that site. This is a great way to keep in touch, keep abreast of everything that I'm doing, find out about new guests as their interviews post live. I'm going to get better about how I curate this stuff in 2015. I'm working on plans for a better user experience for the newsletter. So I hope you'll sign up. I'd love to hear from you and get in contact with you. So if you are a regular listener of the show, you may already be on the mailing list, but if not, go over there right now. Check it out. Go to kevintumlinson.com/podcast, where you can sign up for the newsletter, get updates on the show, get free offers. Sometimes I generally give a book away to anybody who signs up. So if you at least want a free book, go check it out. And again, I want to just one more time, I want to mention the Patreon campaign, because it is something that helps me in wedging the time in to do this. I'm going to probably always do this whether I make a dime on it or not, but it is nice to make those dimes. So go check it out at patreon.com/kevintumlinson or at kevintumlinson.com. Just click fund me. And that's it for this week, everybody. I really love the fact that you stayed tuned and that you are here every week. I see the numbers going up all the time. If you wouldn't mind, here's another favor you can do. Go on iTunes, find the Word Slinger podcast. You can get to it, I think, from the website. I believe I put a link in there. But if you search for Word Slinger podcast on iTunes and find it, go ahead and click some stars and give me a nice review, because that does help make the show discoverable for a new audience. It really does. And I work hard to give you guys the very best stories I can find each week from the most entertaining and interesting and informative people I can find. And I want to see that spread. So the Power of Story is pretty good at, for things like changing the world. So that's what we're out to do here, right? So go check that out. Give me a good ranking on iTunes. And, I'm now available on Stitcher. So, rank and rate me there and, listen in if that's your listening tool of choice. And if you got a podcast tool that you like, a podcast app or whatever that you'd prefer to use, and I'm not showing up on it, let me know. You can subscribe via the RSS feed on kevintumlinson.com. If you go to kevintumlinson.com/podcast, you can subscribe to the RSS feed from a link there. But and there are all kinds of ways to get it into your player. But if for some reason you can't, let me know. Call me or email me. I'm happy to try to figure out a way to get you on there. So that's it for this week. Tune in next time. I am talking to author and speaker Karen McCullough, who is she's a keynote speaker, and she's she's fantastic. She's really she's a lot of fun. I met her at an event quite a while back, and she is working with me to improve my speaking platform and to get me into that business a little more. So she's a full-time speaker and entrepreneur. So listen in and find out how you can become a full-time speaker and entrepreneur. Isn't that going to be cool? All right, check it out next week. Karen McCullough. And that's it for us. We'll talk to you next time.
Word Slinger.